but we are live.
Beautiful. John, pleasure being here with you.
Henry, same to you. Thank you for taking this journey with me.
Yeah,
It was a crazy idea, but why not? Why not give it a go?
No, there's nothing crazy about it. I think quite the opposite, really. I think the things we're going to talk about eventually are things that many people that we don't know and many people that we know can benefit from, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the beauty of this is trying to just kind of let people know, and we've spoken about this before, that people tend to feel alone sometimes when they're dealing with things, and our paths kind of aligned with each other from a very early time in our lives when we first met, and we realized that there was a lot of parallels between the way both of from our childhoods to even our businesses that we kind of ran as we got older, and then the kind of the trials and tribulations that we had to deal with along the way. Weird because we never knew each other growing up. We didn't meet till we kind of our kids started playing sports together.
Yeah.
But our lives kind of were running on this parallel with each other, and we're destined, I think, and I'm a big proponent of that. We're destined to kind of intersect at one point because there was a reason for it. So.
We always said we're like two brothers from different parents.
Yeah, the brother from another mother. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think I could be. If I had a scripted brother, it'd be and honestly, it would be you because.
So I must apologize. No, but so what brings us here? What are we doing here? What brought us here is our great conversations. We used to have conversations outside of a mic. And we said, if we were to do this in a podcast setting or some sort of setting where people can listen, I think a lot of people would benefit. I think people of all shapes and sizes are in some way struggling with something, and a lot of the times it's hard to reach out. It's hard to admit it. It's hard to say something public. This is equivalent to coming out of the closet.
Yeah.
If you think about it, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
This is something like, I'm not crazy. Like, it's not a matter of being crazy. It's a matter of what do you want to do with your life in terms of enjoying it for the moment, let it pass by, be in anguish. It comes a time where you can't take it anymore. And I think that's kind of, we're going to get to that where you got to, right? And quite frankly, I think most people really always get to that point. They just live another day and they continue on.
Well, I think it's always about, and this is one of the things I've always kind of, one thing I speak to a lot is choice, right? So you have a choice when you're at that point where either you're suffering or you're anguish or whatever you're dealing with in life is super intense. You could, like you just said, choose just to live another day, which yes, live another day, but you could also choose to make your life better. And I'm not talking about, monetarily, which is great, you could do that. I'm talking about choosing to see your life through a different lens. And I think that's one of the biggest things we've always spoken about is people kind of look through life in this lens that they have, and they believe that that's the only lens that they could see through.
Yep.
Right? My mind works a certain way, so that's how I must see the world. My mind thinks this, therefore that's what probably is reality. My mind is telling me this, so it must be true. And unfortunately, and a lot of people have a hard time grasping that your mind really isn't who you are. It's, it's a great tool. And when we don't use it as a tool, I think is where people kind of get stuck into this anguish and suffering and believing that things have to be the way that they are today. They have to be the same way tomorrow and going forward. And I think that's one of the things that we've always spoken about, and what kind of brought this kind of podcast to light was, hey, listen, we both see life a different way. We've experienced things differently. We have multiple lenses that we wear to see life through, and we notice it with people around us on a daily basis who kind of still only wear that one lens, and makes us more aware of, hey, wow, you could see life completely differently if you choose to, which is kind of what I was getting to when I first started was that word choice. That word choice for me is huge.
No, you told me that. You open the door. You like cracked the door open, and I said, "Oh my God, you're right. You're right." Yeah, like we come back to that example that you gave me that one time. Like yeah, you're not happy. You're experiencing a happy moment,
Yeah,
but you're
man.
not happy. And I'm like, holy God, you're right. And we always say, oh, I'm happy. And well, you are not happy. You're you. You have a happy moment. You experience happiness like you experience sadness. And then you taught me the difference, or let's say the fine hair splitting of happiness and joy. And
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point of identification. And you know what? Before we even go too far into
Right.
all that stuff, maybe let's just give a little, like you said before we even started today, maybe a little background of. And we're not going to try to go into too much detail and bore people with our,
Yeah.
20, 20 years of our lives every moment,
Yeah.
but give them a little bit of synopsis of kind of where we came from. This way, maybe they can relate to
Yeah.
who are these two guys and
Yeah.
what makes them quote unquote experts and wanting to talk about, about life. So
Perfect. So I'll tell you what. So I borrow this phrase from a guy I listen to a lot. I listen to Scott Adams.
Mhm.
My whole family. You
told me about him, yeah.
I love this guy. I can't get enough of him. I listen to his daily podcast live every day. And basically, he says something like this. He says, you ever heard of basket case theory? And basket case theory is basically, I put my words on it. So my words on it is, remember when you're a kid and you go to school and you have a teacher, and the teacher's like so well put together, and you're like, oh my God, the teacher's the authority, and she's well put together, and she knows everything. And then you look at your parents, and you're like, oh my God, they're so well put together, and they know everything, and they're the authority. And it turns out that everybody is a basket case.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form, all those people that you look at and you say, they got it all together, well, they don't. And they're no different than you. So there are times that you feel like, I gotta get it together. Well, everybody's kind of feeling that. And I think today, 2022, is super stressful. It's a super crazy life. And I think everybody's going to feel this way at some point, and nobody knows what to do and basically how to cope or deal with these things. And that's where we started talking, and we said, hey, we speak about this, and I think that somebody else would get a benefit from this. And so here we are, because I used to look at you, okay, as a friend of yours for a few years, and I said, this guy's got it together. I mean, this guy is ridiculous. I mean, this guy is so organized. I mean, look, we're here in a beautiful home. I mean, this guy's got great, look at his life. He's beautiful, got a great business. But it turns out, John, like myself, like you, and like anybody else, has things they were dealing with. And I had no idea up until, we started talking, like, that was surface issues. Like, you're coming out with a book, which we'll get to eventually, but I had the luxury and honor of reading your book, obviously in a very, let's say, rough form, but it was amazing. And I think, some sort of destiny led us here. And even if we do one episode or 1,000 episodes or 1,000,000 episodes, I think we're trying to do a beautiful thing. And I'm going to speak to you about just quickly about me. I may not have had OCD. I don't know. I'm not going to diagnose myself, but I don't think I have OCD.
Yeah.
But I do suffer from anxiety, depression, stress. And I think in saying that, I think anybody listens be like, yeah, I sort of have anxiety and I sort of have depression. There are levels. But talking to you, and you saw how deep I can get, right? So I get deep, you got deep, and it helped me. And it really does help me, because what you're going to talk about, what you're more, let's say, in my opinion, super educated. You've done an incredible arc of, from starting to from confusion to transcendence. And I'm right there with you. I didn't do that hard work. I didn't do the heavy lifting, but just being around you and just talking to you and learning things from you, I don't know if I have to. I think I'm doing great. I think just continuing this is fantastic. And I'm gonna bring it back again. This is like the AA model.
Yeah.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Alcoholics
absolutely.
Anonymous works because you're mentoring somebody else, and in you mentoring or helping somebody else, it's keeping you honest. So it helps me. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
It's yeah, sure. It's becomes a therapy, and you don't even realize that
Yeah.
you're doing something that you enjoy.
So this is only the appetizer.
yeah,
But I'm telling you, if you listen and there's something that you like or there's something that you find of value and you want to implement it and try it, I guarantee you this costs you zero, and I guarantee you there's going to be an improvement, and I'm going to say an immediate improvement in your life, in how you think and how you feel.
if you're willing,
Big word.
yeah, if you're willing,
I think that's the word.
to kind of open your mind and listen and hear and not judge and say, well, listen, my mind's telling me, so no, this stuff can't be true. It doesn't make sense. You have to be willing to just open yourself up and experience things in a different way.
Open yourself up.
Yeah,
That's it. So I think there's going to be a few people that listen to this and go, oh, that's a psycho mumbo jumbo.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Hey, God bless you.
And that's honestly, that's just their ego, basically.
Yeah,
Not wanting to be called out.
the opposite of opening.
Yeah, the ego doesn't want to be called out, right? And we could get into, and that's going to be the beauty of this podcast, is that hopefully it just keeps morphing into the next conversation, because so for my journey, that's kind of what it was. So you said you dealt with anxiety and depression, and that was pretty much the same for me, but I had the luxury of having the sprinkles on top, of having to navigate obsessive compulsive disorder, which is OCD. Mine particular was pure OCD, which is not even the ritual type that people would normally see. Somebody who has to, whether they have to put socks on multiple times or light switches or things like that. Mine was really ruminational. So it was the fact that I would have a thought, and now I didn't like my own thought, which caused me to now try to contradict why would I have that thought. And you get caught in a rabbit hole, on a hamster wheel, and you're just going and going and going. And at the very beginning, I didn't know what was going on, and not to get into too much detail about that, but once I realized that it was OCD, and it wasn't, and I kind of always knew from a child that I had this obsessional thinking, and I was always a worrywart, as I kind of put it, but I didn't realize it until I was in my mid 40s, when it really kind of just went full blown on me and started scaring the crap out of me with a lot of the thoughts that I would have, because with pure OCD, it's like I said before, it's a thought-based form of OCD. So you have a thought, and there's many themes, right? There's harm themes, pedophile themes, religious themes. It could be anything. Nothing's off the table. Where you have just a random thought, a regular person who doesn't experience OCD might have a thought and it flies right by. Person with OCD, just to give a little background, they have that thought and it hits a wall. An alarm goes off and says, wait, we can't let that thought go by. Why did you just have that thought, John? Are you some sort of this? Are you some sort of that? What's wrong with you? The fact that you're having that thought, and this isn't to make people who have OCD feel better, but the fact that you're having that thought is one of the biggest red flags that you have OCD, that you're aware of it and you realize it and you don't like it.
That's perfect.
Right? That you don't like it, but you can't, a person who experiences OCD, you can't tell them, hey, you're having that thought, so that's why it's OCD, don't worry about it, because their mind's just going to come with it's a doubting disease, right? So it's going to come with another question and another question. So
it's like being in a soup.
It is.
Constantly.
Yeah, no, listen, every time you thought you found a way out, you realized it led to another door. And it led to another door, and it led to another door, and led to another door. So I was opening doors 400 times a day, every day, for months on end at this point. To when I finally got my footing, found the right therapist, and we could go into that later on too. And I like I said, I studied ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy, which I recommend to everybody. But from there, I started to have this kind of awareness of my mind and what these thoughts are. And while the therapy did amazing work for me, I think where I kind of, when you said the word before, transcended above, is I kind of mixed the scientific and the spiritual approach. And I kind of said, well, hey, listen, what they're saying here is absolutely correct. And let's take Eastern spiritual teachings. What they're saying here is absolutely correct. And I kind of just started using them both at the same time. And I just found this perfect ingredients of, and this, like, I didn't invent anything new. I just found stuff that brilliant people have thought of and kind of put into practice. But I didn't say, well, I'm only going to use this or I'm only going to use that. I kind of became a student of, hey, anything that has to do with awareness and me disconnecting from this thing in my head, my mind, I'm going to get into and practice. And I kind of did. And, 3, 4, 5 years later of practice, I've kind of gotten to a point where, like I say, I'm not my mind. I kind of look at things differently. I use it as a tool, not as a dictator, or as a, hey, you must be like this or you must be a certain way. So that's kind of where I got to where I am. And, we'll unravel more about our lives and kind of how we got there as we go on, or else we'll probably spend the first 30 minutes on you and at least the first 30 minutes on me.
There's a lot you said in a very short amount of time. I mean, like you said, you said something really key. You mentioned willingness early on. That's huge. I think without willingness, you're really not going to have any success, I think, because you got to have some willingness. It's got to be some sort of work. You got to want to do it. And you said control, basically. I use it as a tool. Isn't that great? Use it as a tool.
Yeah, that's what it's meant to be.
You're controlling it. It is not controlling you.
Well, that's where you get so the control comes once you realize that you're not that thing in your head that is allowing me to speak right now. So people are like, but dude, how can you say you're not your mind? You're sitting here and you're talking. Isn't your mind doing that? Absolutely. That beautiful thing in our heads allows us to create all these things. But when we believe that it is the judge and it is the jury, that what it says is fact and what it says is true and what it feels must be 100% factual, that's where you get kind of caught into this, just this realm of and people suffering and pain and anxiety and depression. That's where that all comes from. It's your identification with that. Because to this day, I still have thoughts that are OCD based. I still have feelings that I would classify as depressed feelings or anxious feelings. But when I have them, I don't identify with them. I don't have that feeling. I'm experiencing it. So I hate to use words like have, must, and should. I like to use words like we have choices and we experience things. I experience sad feelings. I experience happy feelings. I experience anxious feelings. But with all those feelings, I don't make them who I am when they're happening, and I kind of look through them, and you said this to me years ago, with like a helicopter view. Yeah. Like now I'm looking down, it's like there's two of us. I'm looking down at what's kind of happening and what I'm feeling, but I'm not attaching to them, so they pass a lot quicker. They flow. You allow them to flow through these feelings and these thoughts, and I think that's where one of the major hang-ups is. But willingness is huge, absolutely huge. You have to be willing to be there.
Yeah, and to stay light on the first, because we're the first one, I hope anybody listening heard a lot of, let's say, keywords and topics that we're going to get into here as the weeks and months evolve. And I hope it's like a little appetizer that you kind of saw that you're going to be very interested in. Because I know I'm here with you. I could be here. I think I could be here for 24 hours straight, and it wouldn't be a problem for me. It'd be a total pleasure. And I remember when we took a deep dive, and you were in a bad state, and I picked up on it. And when you opened up with me, I opened up with you. And you were like, your eyes lit up like, oh my God, you get me. I was like, yeah, I get you. I was hoping somebody like you would talk to me. I mean, because here I am looking at a guy who basically I admire because you got it all together. Like, you're the guy I would love to be. And then you're telling me like, oh, you don't have it all together? Well, guess what? I don't either. And let me tell you, I have these thoughts and I have these things happen to me too. And we were both like two idiots, like looking around for help, like, what? You too? Like, yeah, me too. And that was when we talked about you're in a room, like your head's in a room. Your head's a room. Like, we're in this room. And in that corner, you have a depressed, sad guy. And he's constantly telling you, you gotta be, and you're like, hey, I see you. You live in my head, but I choose not to be with you. And then you have another guy in the corner. He's happy. That guy's just dancing all the time, like, woohoo, that guy. And you're like, well, relax. Yes, it's nice being with you, and yes, we'll be
Absolutely.
together. But calm down, and then somebody taps you on the shoulder, and it's that guy worrying about everything. Hey, you know what's gonna happen tomorrow? You don't do this, and all these things, all these feelings, live in the same head.
They do.
And you got to listen to everybody, and eventually, if you don't have that separation, you're gonna go bananas. And I think that's what's going on in 2022. When you think about the amount of people taking all sorts of pharmaceuticals, you know.
And they have their place, right?
Of
So they
course,
do, right?
of course.
But they do have
Oh
their
my
place.
God,
But they're
of
not the
course.
answer.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just saying.
That's
It's
the
like,
problem, I think, yeah.
look, today, you go to the doctor, you know, and I'm sure, you know, if you're listening, you're probably nodding your head. You got it. I mean, you go to the doctor and you say, look, I got this, you know, I'm turning 40. I'll talk about myself. You know, I have a history of cancer, blah, 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 blah. And the doctor's zoned out. The doctor is zoned out, not listening to you at all. And you're like, so I think I need blood tests. So he writes a script for LabCorp, get a blood test. I haven't even been called back. Like, I'm chasing the doctor. Doctors don't care. They're just, today in 2022, the average doctor is just, it's more of a numbers game. And so here's the pill. And I think what we're doing here is something very different. This is the key word that I'm going to use here. We are offering the connective tissue between what you think is this heady mumbo jumbo psychological world that, oh my God, I can never get into that. I can never sit across. No. It's not that. We're two average guys. Like, it doesn't get more average than this.
Yeah, no, it's not like we're walking around and nothing against people who wear, you know, beads or super spiritual and burn incense. That's great. If that's what you enjoy,
Yeah.
go for it, man.
Yeah.
There's no judgment with any of that. But like, if you saw us, I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, with Italian background. I have the New York. If it's not coming through the mic clear enough, I have an Italian Brooklyn accent.
Really?
So, yeah, it's kind of heavy at
I
times.
thought you were from Southern India.
You know, I'm a contractor. Growing up, I'm a contractor now. Grew up in a family. They were all painters growing up for the most part. So it's not like, you know, we come from this, you know, weird background. I mean, we are the typical, normal, everyday schmuck guys. Grew up playing sports in the streets, hanging out with our friends. So we can relate easily with people who think that this isn't for them. I'll say, well, this isn't for me. I wouldn't have thought this was for me either.
Yeah.
10 years ago, 15 years ago. I mean, I would have said, spiritual, what is spiritual?
Right.
I thought spiritual meant you go to church and you pray.
Yeah.
You know, we could get into that on a different day.
Yeah.
You know, but that's not, you know, that's not who we are. So like you were saying, that's why I think we hope that when we come across, we come across as really relatable, because I listen to a lot of spiritual teachers, and, you know, and I'll mention some of their names, and people will kind of be like, you know, because they hear spiritual teacher and right away they think,
Mumbo jumbo.
mumbo jumbo. I mean, it's mumbo jumbo
You're in
because
a cult?
Yeah, exactly. I've had family members of mine tell me, does that mean are you in a cult? I'm like, no, I'm not in a cult. But see, that the perception is what scares people away and pushes people away and just solidifies in their mind that, hey, no. If I can't think it, if I'm not aligned with this thing in my head, then no, it's not for me. And I think you're just missing out with the best part of life.
Yeah.
Imagine having a tool in your hand that you could choose to use it when you want it, and not only use it, but use it as an expert. Like, use it properly the way it's supposed to. Instead of having a hammer in your hand and it's just smashing shit as it wants to, constantly, and you have no control over it.
Oh my God.
You know?
No, and I think, again, doesn't get any more everyday than us. But instead of bearing our souls to each other, we're sharing it with everybody else.
Yeah.
And we're saying, listen, we're no more special than anybody else.
No, man.
But I, in this one instance, you know, you have done an incredible amount of work. And I think that I'm going to piggyback on that work. I'm going to give you joy in watching yourself help me. And I'm going to use your experience and your knowledge, and let's put it through these mics, and let's see how many people out there have the willingness to basically want to improve a small facet of their life, which can become bigger and bigger and bigger, and you could eventually dominate what you thought was uncontrollable, and you thought was, oh, that's just the way I am, that's just the way I think, oh, that's just the way it's got to be, and no,
People feel safe there. That's the biggest. That's one of the biggest traps. Is they feel they're scared of what they don't know, and they would rather be with the devil they know than when they believe the devil they don't.
Yeah.
You know, this is what I know. I'm okay. Don't rock my world. Don't rattle my don't shake my bus up. Don't leave me alone. I'm good. I know this. This is what makes me feel kind of sane. And it's like, but you're in pain, dude. I mean, you're hurt, and I could feel it from here that you're hurting, and you're choosing not to want to see things through a different light. So we hope that,
well, that's the offer. The offer we'll make is this: you're so comfortable and you're so protected by your ego, by your, let's say, the things you know, the patterns you know. Well, come outside for a minute, try something that we're talking about. If you like it, great, use it. If you don't like it, then we're the same idiots that you thought we were 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. We can't control
That's it.
that.
And we're here bearing our asses and souls for anybody, for one person. If it's one person that says, I listened to you guys and I can't believe how much just 5 minutes has helped me. And that's it. As far as I'm concerned, we had a home run. We had a home run, and it's possible the bases were loaded.
Yeah, and there is a, I mean, so as simple as it sounds, especially kind of what I've spoken about and when we discuss things like this, not identifying with your mind, as simple as it sounds, there is a lot of work into it, right? So it's very simple to attain, but yet very hard to see. And to know it's there. But once you know it's there, it's great. And I kind of, what I hope, and I'm sure you hope also, is as this podcast progresses and as we do our weekly episodes, because there's a ton of things to talk about, like with all the different aspects of this that comes up, that you're going to get a little bit more insight. So how this really works is you have to be willing to, start and listen. You have to be, and then willing to do the work, and then willing to practice, because this is a consistent practice. So what I'm going to tell everybody is, we are not here to tell you that we're going to give you a special thing to do and your life is going to be great. We're going to show you how a constant practice is what this is, but in that constant practice, you will always be able to kind of anchor in a place where no matter what's going on in your life, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, it could be job issues, social issues, relationship issues, no matter what it is, you still have this place to kind of disconnect from that and realize that's your outer world. It's not your inner world. Your inner world can never be touched because only you have the ability to say, I want to feel whatever pain you're going through in life, whatever you're dealing with, I could either absorb that and make it who I am, or I could say, this is what's happening. This is what I'm experiencing, but I could still be in this place of peace and tranquility behind it. So kind of as we go on and we'll talk about different things week to week, the goal is that you take something new away. And in time, you start practicing these things in your own life. And along the way, you're going to hear probably a lot of stupid stories, stupid things that we've done and the way we've kind of evolved into the guys that we are. And you'll take something away from it every week and start your own path and your own journey across, right?
So because we're a bunch of chatterboxes, we did give ourselves a time limit, and I think that was good because we can do this forever.
We could do this for 4 hours.
But before we cut,
we'll zone people out.
Before we cut,
Yeah,
I want to give
absolutely.
everybody. I want to tickle somebody's ass with a feather,
Sure.
and I want you to tell me the quote of what you said. We had dinner the other night, and you said something about living as if you're ready to die. And I want you to say that, and I think we'll close with that because I think that's going to be a cliffhanger
That's a teaser.
for people.
Because people are going to be like, what the hell does that mean,
Yeah.
man?
And
Actually, so that quote was, for me, was taken from a very prominent spiritual teacher in my life. His name is Eckhart Tolle, a guy, and I'll get into this as we go on, who was a big proponent in my life. He said, and I believe it was one of his books, is you need to, the best way to look at this is it goes, learn to die before you die. And we could get into that on next week's episode, but you learn to die before you die. Think about that however you want to think about it. It's not, whatever your perception of it is right now, you're probably way off, and we'll get to it in next week. So learn to die before you die, and there is a freedom in that quote, and a lot behind it. But,
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And like you said, it's freedom. You're basically cutting the cords.
Yep.
And you're letting go.
Yep.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think
We'll get into that next week.
I think my guru.
Yeah, right. By the way, if there was a camera here, you would not think I'm a guru.
Well, I almost tripped on your long white beard. But,
Yeah. Oh my God.
but John, this is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, man. No, my pleasure. So, and in case anybody's wondering, are we good with that name or no?
I think so. Yeah, sure.
You know?
Yeah. So we have to name this thing that we're doing here. And John, I'm coming down the stairs, and John says, "Take a look at that board." And he has a blackboard, and he wrote "Just Beltra Emilio." And for anybody who doesn't know, my last name is Beltra.
We never introduced ourselves.
John's name is Emilio. We introduce, our things are backwards. We'll introduce ourselves later because I think you care more about what we're saying than who we are.
Who
How
we
about
are,
that?
exactly.
But just Beltra Emilio, and if you take the B-E, it's B. Just B.
Which is kind of a mantra of mine. So just B, and him being Henry Beltra. We'll leave you this, and I am John Emilio. So thank you very much for listening, or not listening, or finding us somewhere on the internet. And episode 1 done, and hopefully we'll be back for many, many, many more.
Beautiful thing.
All right?
Love it.
Great.
Thank you, man.
All right, man. Peace out.